welcome. This is our next interview, the Insight to Healing interview, this time with the really lovely guy, Jim Pehkonen. Did I say that right?
You did, Jim Pehkonen.
Yes.
Yep.
And I met Jim like virtually, seeing his story on a Facebook page, and I was really, really impressed, and I was following it a little bit. And this is the first time we are going to speak about that and hear all about it, and also how it helped him to be knowing about the three principles and how that helped him going through a really tough time. So welcome, Jim, and welcome, Mick.
And well. I'm really excited to meet you, Jim, because I know nothing about you at all. Katja said very little, and so it's really, really, really good to meet you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your story.
Yeah, thank you. I really thanks for the opportunity, and hello to both of you and everybody. And where should I start? Maybe a little 3P background. Maybe might that be the place to start, or do I jump into a tumor?
Wherever you would like. Wherever you would like, I'm sure would work well.
Well, I'll kind of go. I guess I'll start with the 3P background again, because it's like I think I was introduced to it in 2010, and at the time I was doing work, and I still do a lot of work in addiction recovery centers, chemical addiction recovery centers. And when I was introduced to the 3P, it was fascinating, because it just made sobriety, recovery, and healing. It made so much sense to me. So I do, like, I'm currently in 6 centers, in 4 intensive outpatient, in a sober living program, and then I have one-on-one clients. And often I go in and I'm working with people quite literally when they are at the bottom, right? When they have committed to get clean from their chemical addiction, and it's a pretty rough time. So I lead 4 to 6 workshops a week. And yet in the middle of this last year, I was involved in an automobile accident. So we were driving, and there was an accident happening in front of us. And as this accident unfolded in front of us on the interstate, and everybody was like really slowing down, we were doing about 30, 35. The next thing I knew, I was spinning. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this big red semi go into the median and then just do this little, it went back right across in front of us. And it happened so quick that I grabbed the steering wheel, and I was attempting to counter steer the spin because I didn't know what happened. And it was funny because I walked away from the accident, but I did suffer some back injuries. So by the time I got in, we got some physical therapy going, and the accident happened in August, and the physical therapy it wasn't going as it should. So then back in January, they scheduled an MRI. They wanted to actually take a look and see what the damage was to my backbone, because literally every physical therapy exercise they gave me, the pain just kept getting worse and worse in my lower back. So, funny thing about MRIs is it often takes a few weeks to get in. So I want to say it took a month or 5 weeks to actually get in. And it was it's unique how the mind, right? Because like, mind, thought, and consciousness, right? Everything, it's all thought, right? It's all thought. And that morning, went in for the MRI. It was an MRI with something they call contrast. And so we did this, and then like an hour later, I met with the doctor. And, they put you in this little room, and you're sitting in the room, and it's a doctor that I had seen a few times before. And she walked in, and she just had this really long face. And it's still so crystal clear, right? Because I'm like, long face, doc, what's up? And she looked at me and she says, "We don't care about your back right now." And I was like, it's like just everything slowed down and stopped. I'm like, okay. She said, "There's a very large growth on your left side." She says, "There's this growth." And my first thought, right, it's like, boom, right? Because, you know, it's interesting because when I speak about this with groups, I often say, was the growth real? Right? And you know, the answer is yes. But then are the thoughts real? And everybody says, I don't know. And it's like, in that moment, the first thing I said was, is it cancer? And she looked and like she says, you know, we don't use that word. It is a growth. It is a mass. But she said, you need to actually get in and we need to do an MRI of that area because since it was looking at the lower spine, if you looked at the x-ray, there was just this black over here. So, you know, you kind of go out and it's like the whole world, like in the mind, the whole world is shifted, right? I go out, they scheduled an MRI for 10 days because it was 10 days before I could get in there. And the doctor herself called me like 3 hours later and said, no, said 10 days doesn't work. You need to get in tomorrow. And I was like, oh. So I you know, and she arranged a place for me to get one at 7:30 the next morning before they actually opened. I went in, got it. And at noon, I got a call and they said, you have renal cell carcinoma. They said, it's just, you have kidney cancer. And it's interesting because in that space, everything gets incredibly surreal, right? The first thing I did was I looked up on the internet kidney cancer. And I don't know, 20 minutes later, I closed the computer and I literally went for a walk because I was so shooken because everything on there, it's like I might as well go get a gun and shoot myself. And in the meantime, my lady, who works up at Huntsman Cancer Institute, had gotten me in to see the surgeon Thursday morning. She went over and again. It was an early morning meeting. They got me in ahead of everybody. The beautiful thing about having a partner that works in a cancer institute is it was like red carpet treatment, right? And the most unique thing that I was aware of was my thoughts about this growth. And the first thing I did, and if you have any questions, interrupt me, you know, the first thing I did was name it. And I named it Groth because I took Groth, right? I took the W from growth. I put it in my column and I just called it Groth because I'm going to win. I'm literally going to win.
Does that have some... Sorry to interrupt. Does the Groth have some kind of meaning?
It is only because she called it a growth.
Yeah.
And if there's going to be a win, I am going to win. Right. Like that was.
I've got it now. I got the W. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
I'm gonna win. Right.
Yeah.
And the most fascinating thing that I've seen really through this whole process is where my thoughts went, right? Because what if it was cancer, right? Thursday morning came, and all of a sudden it was interesting because I was still leading workshops. Matter of fact, the Monday after it was first discovered, I went to a workshop, and this is going to sound cold, but they were whining about this, and I'm like, is that your biggest concern, right? And my workshops have literally shifted. So anyway, Thursday morning comes around and I meet with the surgeon, and the surgeon is like, because of the type of growth that it is, they couldn't go in and do a biopsy. They said it's a 75 to 90% chance that it is cancerous. It appears by looking at all the, I actually did a CT scan. By looking at all the CT scans, it looked like it was fairly contained except in one area. And they said that's our worry. They said if this has opened up, it spreads to your lymph nodes, to your lungs, to your brain, and to your bone marrow, and it's fatal. They didn't use the word fatal. They used another word. They said it makes the fighting different. And they offered to take it out the next day. They said, we'll make room in our schedule Friday or Monday. And I said, well, what are my options? Because I said, we had a family vacation plan, right? If this is something that was, not going to go well, I'd kind of like to go on the family vacation, have some fun, right? So, and he didn't, the surgeon was like, he says, whatever you want. And I said, here's what. I said, let's do it after the vacation. And I said, I will work out. I said, I want to get my body in as good a shape as it can. I said, because my mind is fine with it. I really am fine with it. One of the things, like, as I see the three principles, yeah, the tumor was real. Yes, there was a growth inside of me. There was something that wasn't supposed to be there, but there it was. And they said it was about the size of 1.5 times my fist. Like, that's how big it was. They said it was pushing against my spine. So all these exercises I was doing was literally pushing it against the spine, which was causing the pain. And yet I wanted to be in, like mentally, I got it, right? There's the growth in there. There's something in there that has to come out, right? If it is held its own, they'll remove it and I'll be okay. And that's what my thought was, right? The Monday night that we did it, I did a very, very deep spiritual, I did the spiritual work that I do in recovery centers. I did it with me, and my lady led this very deep breath meditation. And in that evening, the consciousness part of mind, thought, and consciousness, right? That is the all of us. Literally, what I was aware of was it was going to be okay. I was going to be okay. I saw this big purple eye, and it just kept washing over me that I'm going to be okay, that I'm going to be okay. So I negotiated. I said, give me 17 days. I will work out every day. I will be in great physical health, and we're going to go do a family vacation, because if something goes on, hey, I get to do a family vacation before the grand opening. And I didn't tell many people. I was in one workshop, and some people were talking about something, and the only time pre-surgery that I did is in this workshop. I just stopped it. I said, what would you do if, I said, because it was a room full of people that were recovering. Most of them had 30 to 45 to 60 days clean, and they were just beginning to struggle with this life after being in a residential center. Now they were in a sober living home. And I said, what would it be? I said, what would happen if they found a tumor inside of you? And they were giggled. They were like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And I said, well, I said, may I share something? I said, it's happened. I said, on February 21st, they found one in me. And it was interesting how the whole energy of the room shifted. And I didn't say it. I get really upset if people are, oh, poor you, right? It's like, no, there's no poor me. I mean, it's literally perfect, right? In the context of thought, I get to choose how I get to be with this. And most of the time, if people know me, I tend to be fairly humorous. And I even once got accused of not being sensitive enough to the fact that I had cancer. And I'm like, but it's my cancer. You know, I can be with it how I want. And ironically, on St. Patty's Day was the grand opening. And in a surgery that was supposed to go, there was 3 surgical teams, right? There was the anesthesiology team, the vascular team, and there was my surgeon. My surgeon said it was going to probably be 2 to 4 hours. He said, we usually target about 3 hours for what we have to do with you. My surgery was 1 hour and 45 minutes. I have a picture because, you know, one of the things I asked, I said, could I have my kidney? Like, can I have it? You know, and they looked and they said no, right? And I said, but they did take a picture of it. And the most fascinating thing is it looks like a heart. It's that big. And you can see where the tumor is almost coming out. And you can see the vascular network. You can see the black veins of this thing at the one edge that was closest. And I got out of the surgery, and I have never had that level of pain. And even, you know, pain is a choice, right? I mean, they cut into me and it hurt. But the nurses came in about 3 hours after to do, you know, because, you know, whatever, you know, let's check your vitals, make sure you're okay. Do you need pain medication? La, 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 la. And I said, next time you come in, I'm taking a walk. And they looked at me and they said, yeah, right. Well, 3 hours later, they came in and I got up and I walked to the nurses' station and back. And I said, every time you come in, we take a walk. And 3 hours later, they came in, and I did my first loop all around the hospital. The next day, after one day of being in the hospital, they came in, and they said, you can go home today if you want. And I was like, you took my kidney out. Like, let me stay one more day. I was arranging for my mother to come over and assist in taking care of me for a week, which she did. Bless her. The second day after it, I was out. And one of the like the pure gift of the 3 principles and is that I got to choose how I was about this at any given moment. And I will say, right, there was days that all those thoughts were there, right? This isn't fair, you know, why me? But that's just a thought. And that thought will do nothing to move me forward into healing. And I also, right, in the work I do in recovery, like, and this is a thought too, but I'll take this thought, right? That's a test. Can I walk my walk? So, I was out after 2 days. I got out on a Thursday. A week from Monday, I began doing workshops again. You know, granted, people had to carry all my stuff in because of the type of work I do. I have.
Can I just check, just for the people listening, can I just get a contrast to what it might be normally? What kind of timescale would people normally expect to come out?
There are people that I know who have had similar operations. One of them was in the hospital for 7 days, and granted, a radical nephrectomy, taking it out is easier. She just did a partial, but she was in the hospital 7 days the first time, 10 days the second time, and I want to say almost a month the third time because she's had 3 bouts of it.
Wow. Each
of her recoveries has been 8 to 16 weeks, and she's now on long-term disability.
Whoa. Okay.
Another guy that I know, a friend of mine, who had it between Christmas and New Year's, he was off for 3 months. So that's...
It's a kind of, that's a bit of a scale.
Yeah. And they told me I would be in the hospital for 4 to 7 days. They said plan on 4 to 7 days. And on that day one, the doc came in and he said, "You can go home."
Right.
And no,
no, I want to stay here. Yeah.
Well, I will say, right? They just it hurt. Like,
yeah.
But even that, like, even that's it. There is physical pain there because they did. I mean, they cut all the way through. But there's also an awareness that, like, for me, the biggest awareness was this thing isn't in me anymore, you know. And when we got the results back, it was cancer, and it was one of the nasty forms of the cancer. And they said it was probably about 2 months from breaking out and spreading throughout the rest of my being. So I'm blessed. And like, it was in the kidney. I have another one, right? I have a backup. And I've been accused of being a little cold about that, but it's like, what is my lesson, right? Because if you look at the spirit, and I am working with a spiritual teacher, because I'm human, all of my issues, I'm just as messed up as the next person. Although, if you understand mind, thought, and consciousness, especially like the mind and the thought, those thoughts are always there. Which one do you focus your energy on? Which one do you pick? And, the consciousness, I do really deep spiritual work. It's why I believe I'm on this planet, is to assist those who are going through the transition of, for whatever reason, they've lost love, and in that pain that got created in their being, they use drugs. It's a place where I can be very passionate with those that are just getting off of drugs because they literally are at their low point. I love what I do. And it's like, and there's a lesson here. There's a spiritual lesson that I'm dealing with my cancer. Does that make sense? I don't know. What are you hearing?
Katja.
Well, I find it fascinating to see this as a lesson. It's a little bit of how I used to think, but I'm getting to see that it's more than an information rather than a lesson, because I think whatever we do, we're wired up and we're guided by one energy, and that one energy, at least that's what it looks like to me, is like this one energy creates everything. And so there's no judgment or no blame or there can't be a lesson then if it's one energy playing out in different forms.
Okay.
So when I hear you say that, and I mean, I hear very, very strong in your story, and I'm not even sure whether you noticed, but I hear very strongly how there was real health in your accident.
Yeah. It was a blessing.
That it was something that came up in your life, which pointed you in the direction that it could be seen on time, right? Mm-hmm. And I find that in itself is a really powerful story. I mean, that you dealt with the situation in the way you did, and that's very powerful indeed. But right. I see even more power in, because how many people would be moaning about having had an accident and would be moaning about having had some back problems or something like that.
Right.
But what a blessing in disguise that was.
It was to me, like on the spiritual sense, I believe that there is a greater spirit than us. And part of me, I believe that we have lessons. And I don't know if you want to call it karma. I also believe that there are places in our being that we need to heal. And I believe that I created. It's interesting, and I have to be careful here because when I do this in groups, I get a lot of pushback. Because I believe, whether it was my lifestyle, where I lived, the work I've done in the past, something created a dis-ease in my system that landed in my left kidney. And then it fostered and grew. And yet also something happened. So it was discovered. And the potential is there to literally remove the physical, but for me, there's a spiritual lesson there too. And when I work with my spiritual teacher, it has been incredibly profound. And now, it's every night, I'm up at the cancer. One of the great things about being a cancer survivor is that they have all of these programs, right? There's all these wellness center that is just for those. So every other week I get acupuncture because the pain of the pain in the back is still there because the accident did cause some damage to my spine, and then the pain of the removal of the kidney is there. And yet oftentimes I'm sitting up there, and I want to say 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I was sitting waiting, and this gentleman came up and sat next to me, and it was one of those things that he was with his wife and I assume his daughter, but he came over and sat next to me, and I wanted to get up, but I didn't, and I looked over and I'm just like, our eyes caught, and I'm like, how you doing? And you could see the sadness in his eyes, and he said they, last Thursday they found a tumor in me. And I looked at him and I said, wow. I said, that's what happened with me too. And he looked at me, he said, really? And I said, he says, what happened? So I told him the story, and you could begin to get a little glimmer, and he says, I don't know what's going to happen. And I looked at him and I said, whatever happens, it's going to be okay. And he smiled. He says, yeah. I said, I don't, tumors on the lung are pretty serious, I've since learned. But I looked at him and I'm like, really though? I said, and he was also very, very, it's like whatever they find, it's going to be okay one way or the other. And he teared up a little bit, and he looked at me and he says, yeah, he says, it is, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it is.
Isn't it amazing to be able to say that from the place that you've been through?
Yeah.
That you have that congruent experience, and you've seen it, and what a gift.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Where could the mind go with this, right? Where could thought be with this? I could powerfully choose to be a victim. But that doesn't make sense. It just, like, what an adventure. My last three, I'm third time's a charm, right? I'm going to pull some human magical stuff, right? But every year in the last 3 years, something has happened that has just had me be so close to death. And yet, I still emerge stronger each time. Personally, I hope this is the last time that we get this close. It's just like, it's an adventure. Every aspect of this life is an adventure, right? And it's like, if we begin to see it as such, what does it make available? I mean, part of my give back eventually, right? I know before we started the recording, I showed, I had this little dog here that, if you knew me, I have former clients just looking at me and giggling, right? There is something about this dog that's incredibly amazing. I'm going to find a way, whether it's service or therapy, to get her trained so that I can go up and I can help more people who maybe are newly diagnosed, or I can go into the children's hospital with those children that are going through this. Because it's all mind, thought, and consciousness. And in the space of thought, right, the growth was real, but I got to choose who I got to be. And again, I mean, there were times that I wasn't in a good space. I didn't want to, there was, because it's like, it's one of the thoughts that's there, right? The thought of being a victim. But that's not going to forward my healing.
So how did you do that? I know clients always ask, how do you do that? How did that happen to you, that you did the thought, as you say, that kept you more positive than you could have been?
One of the exercises that I do with people is I have them look at, in any given circumstance, what are all the thoughts you could choose, right? I use that very regularly when I'm working with groups of people in recovery. I just did my, it's like even if we were to do this right now, and let's have this be interactive, right? If someone said that you have this growth inside of you, what are the range of thoughts we could have? Let's each one maybe throw a thought out. And I'll throw the first one out.
There is no future.
Yeah, there is no future, right? Beautiful.
Yeah.
Katja, what would have thought?
Totally, that's, what do I do now? No.
What do I do now, right?
Yeah.
Well, a thought could have been, why me? This isn't fair. Right?
What's going to happen to my kids? What's going to happen to my kids?
What's going to happen to my kids? What's going to happen to my spouse? Right? Those are all thoughts. How, if, they told me that I needed to plan on taking 8 weeks off, right? I'm a coach, right? If I am not leading a workshop or coaching people, no money comes in. What am I going to do about money? I could even get mad, right? Why did God do this? I thought God was a loving God. Why did God do this? With each of those thoughts is an emotion. And there's also the thought, I can do this. There's also the thought, what an adventure. There's also the thought, my next lesson. Am I going to be able to walk my talk? Or is what I say in front of these groups of people that are in recovery, is it just crap? Look at him, right? And it's like, look at him. Like, everything was fine until he got cancer, and then he just, melted away.
Yeah, part of the discussion in Facebook I saw was your question, shall I share this with my clients? Shall I speak about this or not?
Yeah. My partner was so dead set against me telling. She says, you cannot tell people. You will lose clients. You will lose business. She pleaded with me, please. And I waited until the Monday after the surgery. And she also, right, like, my lady is so phenomenally beautiful and incredible. She also said, right, because she's an occupational therapist up there, she says, if I come up to your room and there is a trail full of people outside of your room because all of your friends are you will not heal. I will kick every one of them out. She so loves me. She was concerned about my well-being. Mm. And in the realm of thought, right? And I don't, sometimes I wonder if I really understand the 3 principles, or if I it's like, I'm always learning. But I get to say, and when I'm working with people who are giving up cocaine and heroin and meth, right? That first month to 45 days, all of those thoughts that they have buried are all coming up. I do this work and there are people crying, there are people yelling, there is anger, and yet for whatever reason, in those situations, we get to a space where they can literally see you are in a space of thought, tagged with an emotion, and it's stuff you've been suppressing. But if you get up and release it, you literally get to a space of nothingness, and from nothingness, anything can happen. Does that kind of answer your question? I mean, that's I had to do my own work. Because every thought both of you said, they were all there, right? Why me? This is like, what about my family?
And some. Yeah.
And some, right? And it's interesting because my lady told me that my doctor went in for a procedure yesterday and the person died. They had the talk with me that I may not emerge. Want to know what my thought was? I've lived a phenomenal life. I was more worried about my 2 girls and my lady. Because if I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm moving on. It's okay. Like, the spirit leaves the body. I get to, like, whatever's next. That's my next adventure, right? Now, I don't want to die, right? I want to live. I love what I do. But literally, even that's a thought, right? I'm more worried about my lady and the girls and my clients.
And that's the reality we're living in.
It is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It is amazing.
But that's how. Go ahead, Katja.
I just really like how you said that, out of this nothingness comes a fresh thought, something new that we didn't know before. And that, for me, that nothingness, that's what I would call this great spirit. It's this potential that in any moment now our experience can be shifted and changed despite the health condition or the condition, and if only recently I saw this connection or this word condition in a different way, and I thought, conditioning, and the condition falls away, the conditioning falls away, then there's fresh creation.
Well, yeah, I mean, what is the social conditioning if you have cancer?
What do you think?
The social conditioning is you're a victim. You're broken. I'm supposed to feel sorry for myself. That's just for me. If anybody out there has had cancer, I'm speaking only for me, right? But it's like, as I look at the social condition, as I sit in the lobby at Huntsman and talk to, like, if somebody wants to talk to me, I will talk to them. I want to, like, that gentleman, by the time we were done, was actually smiling. I literally think he found peace, because we're never that far away from peace, but we think we are. Life happens. to every person. It's always perfect.
How did you speak to your friends much before and after?
My close friends, I did, yeah. My close friends, you know, my family, I did. It's quite interesting. I called my sister that morning, or I called my sister, I want to say that morning, or the Tuesday morning after the Monday I'd found it. And the first thing my sister said, no, it was the Monday morning. It was after it was just been found, right? And I said something to do with my kidney, and there's a big mass. And the first thing my sister said was, my best friend died from that.
Oh dear.
And I was like, I'm not sure I needed to hear that right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you know, did you think that, how did people respond to that? Did you feel like they were able to stay calm with the news? And if they did, you know, what was the difference for you in their reaction? Because I spoke with Bart about that, and he noticed that while he was having chemotherapy and he was in hospital with leukemia, he said that lots of people came in and were very fearful, and they came in with their own load of worrying and with lots of thinking. Mm-hmm. But because he was in such a great space that he could see that, and then he could even, it was like it changed the roles, right? Instead of them visiting him and being there for him, he was there for them. So I wonder if you noticed that.
So do you want to know a number of the nurses I gave coaching to? There was one nurse we got into relationships, and when she came in, we would go for the walk, and she would talk to me about her relationship issues, and I was giving her coaching. I was there at a unique time. There was a doctor who was in his final internship that wanted to come in and wanted to do some role playing. And quite literally, one of the first things the doctors, he used the word "I'm sorry" in like first 3 sentences. I literally stopped it. I said, "Why are you sorry?" And he had his instructor there and another student. And I looked at the instructor and I said, "Where is this gentleman ranking in his class?" And the instructor looked at me and said, "He's one of the top ones in the class." I looked at him and said, "You're one of the best that they're producing up here. There is nothing sorry about your life." And we turned it around that he actually sent me a very long thank you note saying that has profoundly shifted how he sees, how he interacts with people. So most of my time, my short time in hospital, and even one of my friends came in and he noticed that, and he's like, "What is it with you, dude?" He's like, "Who should be sitting down here?" And he says, "You're even coaching in here." But if it's right, I have in my mind, the only reason that spirit greater than me allows me to keep walking is I want to make a difference in other people's lives. It's not about my crap. Great, I got a tumor. Great, I got cancer. Great, I would jokingly tell people, right? I would tell the docs, because they go through all these medical questions. It's the same ones, right? Are you allergic to anything? Yes. I said, I'm very allergic to growths. And they would look at me, right? And I get to say. I don't know. To me, that sounds crazy because it's not how we're conditioned.
I mean, you said something very powerful when we had our first chat, Jim. You said, "I created it and I can uncreate it," or something like that.
Yeah. Well,
it's my cancer. You said that, it's my cancer. I can do with it what I like, and I thought that was quite powerful. Yeah. Because, that's part of the condition, isn't it? It's the way where we get to create things.
Well, it's where we give our power away because none of it is our fault. But yet when you take it on as because it's like, I created it, and I also created the accident where it could be found. I also created every step, and now I get to create my healing. Because the spiritual healing that I'm doing, it goes far deeper than the removal of one organ. It is the issues associated with they're a part of my dark side. And I created that healing too. You know, go ahead.
There was something you said in there, and I just wanted to flesh it out a bit. You mentioned there's no blame, and yeah, could you just flesh that out a bit?
Well, there is no blame. There is just, if I literally accept that I created it, then I get to be in my being. Because the moment I blame somebody, I literally give my personal power away to that, right? I worked in commercial nuke for in the nuclear industry for, I want to say, 4 to 5 years. The best case that I can see in where I got this disease was probably because I worked in it was highly radioactive. And I've had my share of exposure. But I chose that. I'm not going to blame that. I chose to be wherever I was, because the funny thing is they can take a look at the type of cancer, they can take a look at the size of it, and they gave me an age of it. When it was, here is when it was created. It was approximately this old to this old. That's just information for my healing. Right? What was my thinking back then? And I will say it. I don't speak of this that often, but I will say that in that time period there was some darkness, and I considered taking my own life. It got to the point that would have been there, and I chose not to. But I often write, and I smile when I say this inside, but what if that tumor was a slow suicide? And I literally, I want to live. I love what I do. I live for what I do. I want to live. I have a partner that she is the most beautiful lady in the world. I have these 2 girls that are they're her children, so they're not biologically mine, but I get to be a positive role model for them as they grow up in an incredibly tumultuous world. I don't want to leave. There was a time that I did. I got to be careful saying that, because I don't want, he's this, but it's like, I think we all have those thoughts every now and then. And I think our subconscious is so powerful, right? And this is just a story. This is completely a story. But what if I chose a little dis-ease and I put it right in that kidney? It's a ticking time bomb. It's a little cyst of poison that once it releases, it does its job very quickly. And boom, I also created the discovery of it, the removal of it, and now I'm doing and I'm not just doing the healing on a physical level, I'm doing the healing on an emotional and a spiritual level. Because if there is mind, thought, and consciousness, what if there's work to be done in all 3 of those arenas, right? And if you really want to kind of have a kooky thought, what if this is healed at a conscious level, what if I am opening the healing up for others I may not even realize?
I'm sure you are.
But I don't know.
You don't know.
But that's a thought too, but I kind of like that thought. That thought has me get up. That thought, it's like, woohoo, we're going to be doing like an interview here. Woohoo! What if somebody watches this and gets something for their life, such that their life is shifted and they're healed just a little bit more, whether it's in mind, whether it's in thought, or whether it's in consciousness? Bam! Being of service. Give it away.
Well, your will to live is hugely inspiring. Hugely inspiring. I feel it.
Life is fun. Life is a blast. And I love what I do.
You know, what I find really inspiring in you is to see that you see yourself as the creator. You see yourself as the creator of all those things, you know, the condition in the first place, the tumor, the removal of the tumor, the healing now, and all that. And you're talking about blame. And when Mick asked you about the blame, you're just talking about what's the point in blaming others. And I find it amazing and very inspiring that you never even thought about talking about blaming yourself, because you don't. And I think that's really amazing, because lots of us, if we can't blame anything outside, you know, and I'm one of those people that I always take the blame and it's all my fault and I should know better and I should do better. And in my past, I've had health conditions because of that. And when I learned about the principles, what was really powerful was then to see that it's quite innocent what we think. And if we don't know the power of thought and we don't know how it's playing out in our experience, we can beat ourselves up quite a bit. And from that comes a lot of pressure and tension and desperation and frustration, because you can't do better, you should know better. And it's like an ongoing process where you can't really allow that the body could recover. To keep that in place through wanting to do it better, which is a real nice intention. But blame really is I think, one of the biggest inhibitors of healing. And I hear that so clearly, that you, with your story, this is probably the most powerful I've ever noticed this. I can hear you being totally clear of that creation is just happening. Is that how I hear that? Do I hear that right?
I actually had to write that down. I do a weekly article and I may have to write about that. Did you say blame is the biggest inhibitor of healing?
Yes.
That is so beautiful. I'd never thought of that. That is, wow. That's amazing.
But that comes quite natural to you, that you don't do that. You know, your thought process didn't take you there. And I think that's part of why your story is so powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason I brought it up in the first place was because I know I had an experience quite recently of seeing how I'd created my own health issue, health challenge, health condition, whatever you want to call it. And the first thing that, you know, having seen that I'd created it and that I had the power to let that go.
Yeah.
The thing that, when I was telling people about that, the first thing that people sometimes get a little bit nervous about that, because then it puts, well, does that mean all of us create our health issues? Does that mean and there's the blame thing. It's like, does that mean we are to blame if we get cancer?
Right.
Do you see what I mean? It's like, that's why I asked the question, because you and I know that it's not about blame. It's nothing to do with blame. It's nothing to do with blame.
No, that is brilliant. Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah, because it doesn't even enter in my.
It doesn't enter into it. No.
I just need to deal with it. Here it is, right?
Yeah.
I don't. If I pull up to the red light, I don't blame the red light because I have to stop.
That's a lovely analogy. Yeah.
Oh, come on. Don't you see? I got places to go. Why are you going red on me? I'm so pissed at you. I've had it. I'm done driving. I'm it.
Yeah. God gave me that red light. Yeah.
God, what the? Yeah, right.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's a beautiful insight. That is just, wow. I may have to have a few talks on
that. Yes, you can quote us in that.
Yeah.
Well, it's I mean, it's when it becomes a technique, if you like. I've heard people have been looking into health and the mind-body connection for a long time now, and you get to hear it in the alternative world, and that we create everything. You get to hear, and that gets trotted out. And I think when there isn't for me, what mind, thought, and consciousness has done has given me a very different understanding of how it all works, without it being a belief, without it being, oh, we create our cancer, or I'm to blame for my ill health, or etc. Without that being any kind of kind of belief structure.
Yeah, like a dogma.
A dogma, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There's huge for me, in the 3 Ps, knowing that I get to ongoingly create my experience, it pulls all the power back into me. One of the, I love working with people, right? Because it's like, especially around the principles, right? Because it's like this week, another example came up of like, what is a hurricane, right? A hurricane is just a gentle rainstorm with velocity. What is anxiety? Anxiety is just a series of thoughts with velocity. I could have easily gotten very anxious if I had thought, if and I'm just like, this is just kind of formulating through, but wow, look at me. If I would have blamed all these other things, I could have just given all my power away. Why? It's mine. It's funny. It's mine. I'll do with it what I want. And it really is, right?
So like that is so strong in you that never even occurs to take the blame, even yourself. That's still for me so amazing, right? It's like, I've got the power, I'm the creator, I'm taking it on. It's like, it's mine, it's okay, it's what's happening, that's what's happening, and that's it. There's no other story around that for you, and that is so powerful.
Well, yeah, and I've started my physical therapy now around my back and around the healing. And an interesting thing I notice is if I do it twice a day, I feel incredible. If I don't, my back pain returns. Great. Maybe I should, I'm thinking, twice a day is good, and it's like, I don't know about 3 times yet, but it's just, okay, good. I just have to do it. Because I could blame my back. Well, this is the accident's fault, right? This is cancer's fault. No, right now, I literally just need to build up all the structures around the weakened parts of my physical being. Go work out. I don't know if that relates. I may not relate. I don't know.
Well, what came up when you said that? You said, I could do it 2 times a day or not do it at all. And the immediate thought came up to my mind was, it's a no-brainer. But if you look at what that says, it's a no-brainer. If we take our brain or our personal mind out of the way, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, only this thought, this thought of, oh, it shouldn't take 2 times of training or something like that could take you away from that, because it sort of naturally comes to you to be doing it, and then you do it. This is how you get guided to that, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Well,
no brainer means like, don't think about it, just do what comes to you naturally.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and it was exactly like those 19 days where I would work out 5 straight days. I would take a day off, and it's like the more, within a week, I was up to an hour of cardio, and then with some weight training that would literally have me be in such good shape, right? Cut into me, cut it out. And it's so funny how I was just focused, right? Because they said that this, right? Those that know, this is where your heart needs to be for this time. That's just where I would be. And it just felt good. It really, literally felt good. And it made it so that when they had to mechanically invade, right, the physical portion of my being, my spirit was so strong in here that it just went effortless. They got in and out of there. Plopped it out, took a picture, because they forwarded the picture onto me, because I'm like, at least I want a picture. If you're going to take it, I want a picture. And I just get to heal now. And mind, thought, and consciousness, in any situation, I get to choose. It's my choice. I could suffer in my misery by not doing my physical thing. Oh, look, I hurt. Oh, my body's broken. No. I get to heal. I get to heal on a spiritual level, on a physical level, on an emotional level. I get to be the example for people that I talk to. Maybe somebody can now heal stronger. Or somebody can choose healing. Right? Because there really is no stronger, weaker, whatever. You just choose.
I mean, imagine, right? Imagine you on the journey, and even if the cancer had spread, you'd be still flying through this experience with the same, whatever it is just exactly where you're okay, where you're supposed to be, and where things go.
Yeah, you wouldn't be doing the cancer. I might have 90 days. I'd still be doing my workshops pretty much up to the time that I could. Great. I'm dying. We're all dying. I know I'm dying. We're all dying, right? None of us, and I know it's very cliche-ish that none of us get out of this alive. I would have been okay, right? They come back. They actually, right? I had my first 6 month, because every 6 months for 2 years you have to go through these tests, and then every 3 weeks I'm doing blood tests. I will, mark my word, 5 years from today, I will be alive. Unless I'm not. And if I'm not, then I'm not. It's that simple.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your story. And I knew it would be powerful to be having you live and talking about it. And we've Mick and I, we made it our job or we want to create a platform where there's communication about health with the focus of health.
And thank you for doing that, because we get to be a healthier world thanks to what you are doing. It's beautiful. It's the evolution of those who choose.
Yes, it's easier to choose when we have this understanding, and this is why we like to spread the word about this, because the understanding that we do have the power makes such a difference.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? January 1, I would have never thought we would be having a talk like this, right? And here we are, right here, right now. It's been so beautiful. Thank you so much. It's been so beautiful.
Thank you. Hugely inspiring. Hugely inspiring.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well,
we're going to stop the recording now.